I'm thrilled to welcome you to the second episode of Launch Point, my series where I engage with leaders about newest trends, cutting-edge strategies, and insightful knowledge aimed at elevating your business, your product, and your career. Today, I'm joined by Orlando Gafford, an expert in organizational change management. He's helped companies like Medtronic, Cargill, and Grainger successfully navigate transformation. We're going to dive into how to lead through change, empower teams, build lasting adoption, especially during technology and process shifts. Welcome, Orlando. It's
Hello,
great
Jeremy.
to have you on the podcast today. I know you and I have been on a number of client pitches together, but it's really fun to be together on something like this where we can be a little more free-flowing and not trying to win business. So welcome.
There you go. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate the invitation and kind of looking forward to our conversation today.
That's great. Well, why don't we start out by just having you talk a little bit about your background, how you got into OCM in the first place, and let the audience get to know you a little bit.
Absolutely. So Orlando Gafford, born and raised in Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana, actually. And I've actually had an opportunity throughout my career to work with some very good companies out there. Some were up and coming, others were well established, some large, some small, and it's kind of shaped, who I am today. So as far as how I got into change management, I think it was an accident, but maybe it wasn't as much of an accident as I like to say it is. I was in the training organization with a Fortune 500 company, Grainger Industrial Supply, about 20 years ago. Worked my way up through that organization, became a leader in the organization, began to teach and deliver leadership coaching and leadership effectiveness classes, so forth and so on. So that organization began to make a transition. Right? It started to move away from, hey, we deliver training and we help people build skills, to let's think more about organizational effectiveness. How do we build a better effectiveness type mindset throughout the organization? And from there, I kind of went into the consulting area as a change manager, training, communications, all that stuff, people development skills. Got some coaching from someone I trusted, and who had been my mentor for over a couple of decades. And he said, "Hey, you should give this a try," and so I did.
That's awesome. So probably similar to the staffing industry, no one sets out as a young person, a kid saying, I want to be a recruiter, or I want to get into the staffing industry. Something kind of pulls you in.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's a cool story. Well, as we jump into the topic of OCM, the first question is, how do people typically respond to change management efforts? Are there common emotional or cultural patterns that you've seen that leaders should be aware of?
Yeah, there actually there's patterns there. Those patterns sometimes have to be uncovered. Some people respond to change management efforts with thank goodness you are bringing in someone to help us think about these things in the right way. And maybe, just maybe, this time will be different than the times in the past. Where others see it as, this person is going to get all in our business, and maybe we don't necessarily want someone asking these questions or turning over these rocks. So you kind of get it from both directions, and you just have to be willing and able to accept that and understand it and respond appropriately.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'm sure you run into the different extremes of the desire to have you there helping out, or OCM in general. And as you talk about leaders, do they generally express or support OCM effectively? Or if they're not, like, what's causing that disconnect, and how can we help leaders bridge that?
Yeah, so I would say, if you're there, right, if there is a change management resource being staffed for a project or a series of projects or a program, then you have at least one champion, right? That's that
Mm-hmm.
person who stood on the table and said, "Hey, we need this resource. Let's go out and
Yeah.
find the right person and bring him or her in." Right. So that's good. And then you have you have people who want to understand, leaders who want to understand more about what it is that you're bringing to the table. What's the strategy? How are you going to help us avoid some of the pitfalls that we've stepped into in projects past? So you have that group, and then you have another group, in most cases, of leaders who, well, why can't the PM do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Why can't Tim or Lisa do this, right? They've
Yeah.
had some training experience or some communication experience, and in those cases, those leaders will tend to see the change management activities as a bit of an afterthought that could be done by anybody whenever they have free time,
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense. Yeah, we've certainly heard that, or, when sometimes we'll get recs from our clients and it'll be a combination of a project manager, a program, and a change manager, bundled. And,
Right, right.
I mean, there might be certain situations that could allow for something like that, but probably not a ideal scenario. And kind of with that thinking, with AI coming into the playbooks now of most companies, are you seeing or have you heard, well, why can't AI just manage the change for us?
Oh, yeah.
Similarly to like the project manager, why can't AI lead that change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that conversation, I've heard that more over the last year than I've heard many other things. And then it's not just tied to change management activities or processes. They're thinking about that, when it comes to having a PM or a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other things, training, developing documents and things of that nature. AI, you know, it has a role to play. And I think it has an important role to play. A person who's leveraging AI to get work done is going to be much more effective than a person who doesn't, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
it's already
Yeah.
showing in the workplace. Now, as far as AI, kind of taking over the role of a lead change manager, change is highly personal, and it takes a lot of interpersonal skills to help someone who might be resistant or angry, or maybe they were part of the outgoing system and they have other emotional things going on. It takes a lot
Mm-hmm.
of interpersonal skills to help, you know, bridge the gap between what is today and what needs to be or should be or will be tomorrow. I just don't see AI, and I may have to eat my words one day, but I don't see AI being able to handle that type of work.
As you think about AI, there's certainly a lot of use cases, a lot of things it can do, and the kind of original focus right now are things that are very consistent processes, but also
Mm.
that don't require a lot of emotional intelligence. And so
Yes.
when you think about change, organizational change, you're talking people, and that's where that EQ probably really needs to come into play there. So I can certainly
Absolutely.
see that. Um, as you think about successful change adoption, what are really the key ingredients that make it stick?
Yeah, so adoption by an individual or by a team or a group requires some things. There are key ingredients. That's number one.
Yeah.
It's a proper question because there are definitely key ingredients. First, you have to involve them as soon as you can. Either communicate to them that a change is coming, and
Mm-hmm.
really soon we'll be able to tell you the nature of that change and how it's going to affect your processes. Because when they hear this, it's going to impact my processes. They think, well, how is it going to impact my life, right? Hey, we're
Yeah.
going to change this, and it's
Yeah.
something they've been, evaluated on, graded on, pay raises based on, their performance with this system. Now we're changing that, and so that becomes an extremely emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't involve them soon enough or early enough, or let them be a part of the conversation, then hey, their imagination can run free, right? And
Yeah.
pretty soon, the storyline across the organization is that this is going to be a disaster, just based on the
Yeah.
fact that they don't know anything else about it. So that's number one, involve them
Right.
as soon as possible. Number two, speak honestly to them.
Mm-hmm.
We make changes in organizations sometimes because it's good for the organization. Well, not every pocket or department or group in the organization will have positive things happen from that. Some may have some
Mm-hmm.
additional work to do based on what you're changing and what system you're bringing in. If that's the case, it's best to let that be known as soon as possible, right? We're doing this
For
for the
sure.
greater good. The organization is going to be more profitable. It's going to be more efficient, whatever it is. Now, in order to get there, we were going to need you to do this extra work, which is
Yeah.
not a great message, but it's the
Yeah.
message that needs to be shared. And let them respond to it, let them get upset, help them work through it, and get them on the other side of it. And you know, now you're respected by the organization because you came and honestly said, we are going to do this. It's going to be great overall. But for you, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And that's a rare case, but that does happen sometimes. And and the third thing is do what you say. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
if you get on a call and you say, okay, so we're going to help you do this, we're going to deliver this, we're going to set up calls, we're going to give you opportunities to have your voice be heard. Whatever it is you say, be sure you follow through with that. And so when I go into organizations, I really, really try to convey to
Mm-hmm.
the project leaders and the executive leaders that we need to be sure we put a strategy together to get these things done and follow through on what we say.
That's great information. And as you think about, change, there's probably been a lot of change in change management and OCM. Kind of what are the biggest things that stick out in your mind as far as the evolution of OCM over the years?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I mean, OCM is, we all know organizational change management, but the biggest change is that I think the expectation from organizations and CEOs, the executive suite, is that they need more leadership support as well. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just OCM or just OCL, organizational change leadership. And what does that really mean for the professional, right? So
Mm-hmm.
do you have the skill sets to do that? Can you build the skill sets to do that, right?
Mm.
Can you get in the boardroom and kind of talk about the project and where it's going and how you're going to get people on board? And the next day, can you get out into the field and talk to a lineman about how
Mm-hmm.
this process is going to help save lives and how it's going to impact them in the short term, right? As far as change, and this is what's expected today. So not just bringing the tools and running the processes, but also leading through helping people get connected to the change,
Mm.
from the boardroom down to the field associate, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you could see how that would become important as really the profession of OCM, around OCM, and the more the strategic nature of it has really set in over the last few years. Well, thank you for that, and this is a unique podcast in the fact that not only do I get to ask you questions, but you get to ask me
Mm.
some questions as well. I'm
Ah,
certainly not an expert in the area, but I know you got a few questions for me.
I do have a few questions for you. All right.
Great.
So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
First,
of
as a
course.
CEO, do you personally do you find yourself having to lead through change as a CEO? And what does support look like, from your point of view?
Yeah, I certainly do. I think I'm not sure how long it was ago, but it could have been like 10 years ago that I adopted this phrase of we have to be change ready. We have to be a change ready organization. And every quarterly meeting, I'm beating the drum of change ready. Excuse me, because I know our industry is changing so fast. And we need to be ready for that change, and we can't be that organization that has its head in the sand as to what's happening around us. We have to be out in front, and that requires us to have people that have the mindset like what I'm doing today is not going to be how I'm doing the same thing tomorrow. We have to have that evolution. So yeah, championing the change ready culture. I think as we get into specific initiatives, it's really important that I understand what we're trying to do and set the vision and communicate the why behind the change. Because if I don't know about it, or if I'm not a believer in it, I feel like that's going to put us, at a higher risk of it not being adopted and implemented. So, I kind of not only take the role of CEO, but I like to think kind of chief innovation officer and are pushing the organization. And, we have to understand what we're trying to accomplish, have that vision, and then communicate it. And then once the initiative is underway, staying visible, staying involved in the change, listening and seeking feedback throughout, because I think that's what people are looking for. Is this, kind of the old, the flavor of the month, or is this something that's really gonna stick? And is is the executive team behind this change? And then, but ultimately, it's really kind of championing the vision, ensuring that we have the resources and we have the right alignment across the organization to make sure we go from kind of vision to the execution to post follow-up and continued evolution there. So yeah, I certainly pride myself on being heavily involved in those changes.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I know Horizontal is a very forward-leaning company, so there is, I'm sure, quite a bit of change year after year with you guys. Is demand for OCM talent rising in your experience? Do you see that companies are looking for that skill set more and more?
Yeah, absolutely. To start with the U.S. BLS, or Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think they're projecting a 10% growth in demand for change management professionals. And so you think about why that is. And for me, you look at, and I've been in this industry for a long time, but you look at the pace of change that we've had over the last 5 years. When you look at the pandemic and us all needing to go through digital transformation to be able to operate, to the workforce shifts, working from home, global workforces, and now with artificial intelligence, I think it's been such a massive pace of change happening that it's really driving the demand for OCM talent. And I think it's just been, more broadly considered a key component to every organization is, I think every organization realizes they have to innovate and move the company forward, and having change management resources is really a helpful piece of that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. That's very good. Kind of exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think to your point earlier, that with the skills that they're looking for today, data-driven change leaders, that can articulate and help use data to articulate what's happening, why it's happening, and what the expected outcomes would be. And you also talked about, being in the boardroom to the field office. They're looking for those strategic partners, that can present well, that can, adapt to the room that they're in, and certainly not just practitioners or executors. They want those strategic thinkers and partners.
Absolutely. So you're saying the same thing that I'm saying. So how do you see OCM fitting into the way Horizontal delivers talent or project-based solutions? Is it becoming a more frequent part of the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as a critical layer in how we deliver our solutions. with us being in a competitive environment, we're always striving to improve the quality, the speed, the efficiency of our solutions. And, with that, it requires well-executed change initiatives. I don't know of any industry that's like, hey, we're good right now with where we're at. And if you are, you're going to fall behind quickly. So we need to be looking at it and thinking about that change and innovation on a daily basis. When you talk about our specific solutions, like for talent solutions, OCM can really support in a lot of ways. If you think about the onboarding of candidates and making sure there's good role clarity at the beginning of assignments, faster integration of team members, those are all things that OCM I think can really lend a hand in making sure that's really a great experience for our consultants and also for our clients.
Absolutely.
And when we're delivering project-based work, I think OCM really helps ensure end-to-end user engagement, having that clear communication, and ultimately that sustained change adoption beyond go live. With that, I think it really, we're looking at business outcomes, not just deliverables.
Yep.
And so you can't just put something in place and then walk away and, hope that it's going to be well used and adopted. You got to make sure you have that OCM strategy throughout.
Absolutely. I think
but
that's
I'm
very
preaching
well
to the
said.
choir with you.
I understand, but it really feels good hearing it and knowing that you know it. I think that's fantastic. We talked about adoption earlier, and when we feel like change is within our control and that we're a part of it, we start adopting even before the change occurs, right? So think about that. And if you have an organization going through a large change, it takes a lot of work and a lot of conversations and a lot of documents and a lot of effort to move an organization toward that. But if they're part of the conversations, their frustrations are being heard, they're getting their questions answered, they understand the nature of the change sooner rather than later, they become doctors, they become promoters, right? These are folks who will actually start to fight for this change. And it takes a lot of effort up front and a lot of leadership and a lot of support, I think, from the higher levels of an organization.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And as we come down the stretch here, just if there's one takeaway you'd want listeners to walk away with about organizational change management, whether they're leading it or just experiencing it, what would that be?
Well, the one thing I would like people listening to take away is to know that change occurs anyway. It's going to happen. The question is it going to be traumatic to your organization or not? Right. Is it going to be one of those changes that years from now, 5, 10, 15 years from now, people say, well, remember when? And shake their head and say, that was terrible. Every organization has that, right? So our job as leaders is to get better and to do better moving forward. So, change management can help you with that. So, whatever it takes to understand it better and to have it engaged more in your day-to-day practices, I support that, of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. Isn't it? The famous saying is, there's only one consistent thing in life, and that is change.
That is change.
To that effect. So I like your point on change is going to happen. It's how well can you perform it to make sure that your organization, comes out thriving through the process. Well, Orlando, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your insights. This was such a valuable conversation. And to everyone listening, stay tuned for more episodes of LaunchPoint, where we'll continue exploring the ideas and strategies shaping the future of business. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow and rate the podcast wherever you're listening, and be sure to connect with both Orlando and me on LinkedIn, where we'd like to keep the conversation going. Thanks again, Orlando. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jeremy. You as well. Talk to you soon.